Everybody, my name is Aurora, and if you're looking at this video for the first time, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to actually just having a look. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for everybody commenting and sharing and assisting um, yourselves and each other and myself. We're all going through this together. I've got some thoughts, some ramblings that I'd like to share with you. And the first thing that comes up very strongly is the sense of authenticity that we are being challenged to observe within ourselves. I'm calling it authenticity or originality. Um, and what I've experienced and seen is that as the changes have been taking place around us, we've been in a conscious way being directing ourselves to observe uh, our original self. In other words, we are questioning ourselves. Everybody's questioning themselves. In terms of who you are, where you're going, that same question is coming back up, but there are certain aspects now that have come along with this particular questioning where you are asking, okay, I cannot associate with that particular experience, then therefore I have not learned anything from it, so I'm discarding it. So in the previous videos I've made, I was mentioning about the house of the mirrors that have been breaking down. So we've been taking mirror images or projected perceptions of who we appear and what we appear to be for ourselves, and we have subconsciously questioned ourselves and discarding it or breaking those fragmented mirror images of who we are or of perceptions. It's like a smashing of old perceptions or the mirror itself. And in going through this, you're starting to gain more ground in terms of your originality, your ground. You are connecting with your sacred ground that you found yourself on. In other words, to be grounded in who you are as a multidimensional conscious being, experiencing multidimensional experiences and reflections of oneself. And in that, I also brought forward an understanding or an awareness for you to take note that the Sophia, let me just be very clear in this, where I'm going to say the Aeon Sophia is a Gnostic element, which I'm using in terms of what I'm trying to explain because of the constructed experiences that we're having. Okay, and I'll go a little bit more simpler in that. Long time ago, there was I'm just going to be very simple in what I'm trying to explain. So there was Sophia once upon a time, and she existed. She lived in this pantheon of existence with others, and I'm not going to go into detail on the historical laying out of that particular example, but I am going to just give you a snippet of it so that we can understand where we are right now. And given what has happened at the time, she needed to observe herself. So the Sophia is also related to the soul. The soul is the feminine aspect that we are dealing with. Sophia is the soul. Sophia is the name for soul. Soul is feminine. Spirit is masculine and feminine. The physical matter that you're existing in is either masculine or feminine. Okay? Now, if something needs to experience a particular process in creation, then that particular thing that has to happen is there has to be an intention and then a projection or a process of this particular thing that has to take place. and in that, the observation. So if I want to see what I'm doing, I have to actually literally step outside of myself and actually observe myself. That's where the objectivity comes from. It's where I actually have to observe what I'm doing so I can recognize what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right by my own um, judgment, okay, or my own way of understanding who I am. Um, Second thing that one needs to be aware of is when there's an observation of seeing oneself in what you're doing, that you create then another aspect of yourself. You then live as if you are the observer of yourself. So you're outside. So what I have mentioned this in a much more deep depth in one of my videos. You just have to look around and see. I think it's of the earlier of the more later ones now, where it might be in one of the details and ramblings where one observes creation takes place one when there's intention and an observation that takes place. So you observe yourself. And what happened with Sophia is Sophia was there and it wanted to experience itself and it started to live as if it was outside of itself. And that outside of itself thing formed the basis of a construction overlay over this planet, over this body, this living vessel, this organic or organism that is alive, rather, for it to live in, integrating itself into it. And in that, there are also then even more finer fragments or aspects or snippets where even it is observing itself in all kinds of little ways that it's experiencing itself. And then in that, the human race is in that existence as part of the experience to going through all of the changes, seeing itself and observing itself. Okay, this may sound a little bit like a bit difficult to understand. I am trying to find a better way to explain it because when I get the information, it comes within me and I sit with it for days before I can actually put it even into words because I experience the information as if it's raw. So it's all over the place and I have to basically put it together so it makes a coherent sort of understanding for one to understand, even myself. Okay, now in terms of the changes that we're going through on the planet, excuse me, I've given it as a metaphorical relation to going through the forging, and that is also another video that you need to look at if you haven't, where the forging of certain things take place and the hammering of energy that we are going through. So we are literally forging ourselves. We are being hammered by the experiences around us. We have incredible heat all over in the southern hemisphere, in the northern hemisphere of the planet. And in the southern part of the world, there's also a lot of dryness taking place. So heat, it is a fiery frequency that we are in. Figuratively as well as literally, we are going through an alchemical process, excuse me, of being forged through the fire. Next stage would be water, where whatever was being forged in the fire is now being put in the water so it can actually make it more solid or to give it a bit more definition and so on. But water is also alchemically and spiritually and figuratively related to thoughts and words. So we speak ourselves through our creations and through our intentions and out through all of the processes that we are experiencing. We are literally speaking things to life. It is also the sword. Now, going looking into things right now, what's happening is the constructed, observed, perceived reality rather. Um, I gave it an association of holographic in its nature because it has a holographic structure or frequency. Um, it is important that though it has the holographic structure in its essence, it is also alive. Okay, and it's alive because we're alive, and is alive because if it was not alive, it would not have a frequency of light within it. Okay, and light is something that has to go from one point. Light, I speak the words. My intention is the origin of light coming out, and the light travels and the water runs. I'm trying to give you an example of what I'm trying to explain. Everything is multidimensional. It's like I'm trying to explain things in a multidimensional way of words, which are incredibly difficult. So just bear with me if you're stuck. If you don't understand, please ask me a question. I don't mind answering it as best as I can. In the same way that when light leaves the gates, which is also the mouth, it travels. And in the same way, the sun rises, which is also within. The sun rises and comes out and goes through the process as well. The light travels. Light travels. Light, light travels. Okay. So this construct is folding itself up. The false created, holographic created, or sheet of or overlay of energy is folding itself. It's folding up. Okay. And along with that, it's also lifting up where things were and leaving behind, or you are observing what is under the sheets of fakery. You're observing things for what they are. And even in that, you are being given an opportunity to challenge its authenticity relating to your authenticity. So am I actually seeing something? Is it real? Is it actually happening? Or is it a perceived created aspect that's happening? And so then in that way, the house of mirrors are breaking. It's very interesting. It reminds me of that story of uh, Snow White, where they say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror can only reply in answer to that question, and saying that it will only give what you have already decided that you wanted to do. It will only answer you if you have already thought that up. So it's not like it's going to start being animated by itself. It's like it said, "Mirror, mirror, who's the fairest? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror replies back and says, "Well, you are the fairest." Um, and the person says, "Okay, what do I need to do to keep it this way?" And the mirror says, "Well, I can only give to you what you have already decided to do." There. So we are facing ourselves in the particular ways that we're going through. And then there's also not just the enemy of oneself or being the enemy of oneself, but there is also the uh, there is an external aspect that is interfering and actually using our chaos against us. And because it does not want to lose its traction or its roots in this constructed world. So we are looking at the earth as it is, it's starting to bunch down like that. Energetically, it's starting to flatten out like that. So the top and the bottom are basically doing this energetically, and the fields are bulging out on the side. So wherever there's oppression and compression down, there's where there's the most pressure applied, they would be the most driest. I see. It's folding out and pressing down like that. And then there's one little tiny little thing that's like the best. But we are facing ourselves, and once we've stopped questioning things, and once we've started to feel more at peace with things within ourselves, meaning from the heart that we are actually operating from, that would be my advice, is to continuously look at yourself with love. It doesn't matter what's going on. Just keep looking at yourself with love all the time until all of this has kind of finished itself in its course, because it is going to come to a point where it stops. And then there has been other things being coming in to actually carry one through. It's almost like a slingshot sort of thing. And you're going to go into a higher, well, you're not going to go from point A to point B, but you will be feeling as if you are functioning from a higher level, but that's because you have connected with the authenticity of who you are. And to be here is not to actually make the physical material embodiment that we are in the thing that requires the most praise. What requires any kind of acknowledgement, let alone praising something, is the original, authentic higher self, which is what we actually are in these physical vessels that we are carrying, all of which we are experiencing multidimensionally. Meaning, if I say multidimensional, you need to understand that multidimensional is extremely busy and very and requires a sense of processing to allow things to take place. You're experiencing everything all at the same time. You're seeing things that don't really have any particular value anymore. You may feel that you don't want to do business with the person down that road, but you rather want to do business with that guy who's had his shop there for almost 100 years. You're looking for things now that bring you quality, care, the human connection that you're seeking. And amongst all of this, there are also the things that we're experiencing on a greater uh, level in terms of um, the weather. It's extremely dry here where we are in South Africa. Um, the funny thing is, the entire African continent seems to be in some kind of lull. So everybody else is experiencing everything in the way that it is. I'm not speaking about the social things that are happening in terms of like politics and violence and all those kind of things. I'm not talking about that. I'm speaking about the actual energy structure of Africa itself, from north to south. Um, there seems to be some kind of lower point of energy. Things are not really going, but what is happening is that the density that the continent was structured in, or the density that was loaded onto this particular continent, I'm talking about only Africa right now, is experiencing a detangling of dense realities. So a lot of things from the olden days are coming through. I'm talking olden days. When I say olden days, I'm talking about stories about Egypt, stories about the traditional tribes that lived in Africa that all came from one place and move themselves back down to the bottom end. I'm speaking about a sense of people feeling displaced, um, which is majority of the people that are living in Africa because of what's happened in the past. And I'm speaking about people who have lived in communities and in traditional groups for thousands of years or hundreds of years rather, where they're questioning their originality as well. So this creates a displacement in Africa. But in overall, the continent seems to be pretty stable. When I'm saying stable, I'm saying in terms of the frequency. It's not all over the place. There's no stuff flying all over the sky. There's no little blocks coming out in the sun and nothing like that. I'm talking about the energy that is in the actual foundation of the continent that we are in. Um, Along with displacement comes emotional distortions, emotional disturbances, and feeling emotionally insecure about one's original self as well. And so, in that comes the political and social engineering aspects as well. So, yeah, we are all going through this particular drama in the best way that we can. But I'm looking at all the other continents as well, and the same thing happens. There is a displacement. There is a questioning of authenticity. There is questioning, can this really be so? Am I really happy with this person that I'm married with? Am I really going through all of this trouble? What for? Am I the person that's supposed to do this kind of work? You know, those kinds of things, deep things that actually have deep connections to your original self. Am I actually someone who I can connect with? Am I worthy? Am I worthy of love? Am I? Is that person worthy of my love? Relationships are coming up as well that one needs to look at. So also relationships with groups, social groups, um, and the root of who you truly are. So, yes, to wrap it up, we are going through authenticity, authorizing ourselves to know who we are. We're questioning our originality, and we're discarding the old scripts, the old mirrors, the fragments, the pieces that don't suit us anymore or that has never suited us, that we actually had the energy to say no for, and standing up and really just taking the bully on, and not in the way that is to be expected, but in a very different way. And I do feel very strongly that everybody on the globe there's a strong sense of unity that's actually happening, and I can actually feel everybody connecting in some way or another, whether it's because of the external things that appear to be greater or not. So I hope all of this was just not one big mess. But I've just shared with you my rambles and my thoughts and things that I've been thinking about this morning, and I wish for you a very beautiful day and a very peaceful evening, and actually have a peaceful day too. And when you feel that you're at a place where you're questioning yourself, the answer must always be that you can love yourself even if you've looked at yourself with the way that you have. All things are determined by our heart intentions, by the way that we extend our frequency of light out towards each other. We are multidimensional beings that have existed longer than you think. We have existed in a much greater capacity. Members in particular, human, non-human. If you're living on this planet, you are an earthling. And so earthlings have a connected energy because we are connected also to the vessel that we are being cared for, the earth. And all things that we are experiencing come from within ourselves, and we experience these things because we are creators. And that one day when we finish here and we actually go back to where we're supposed to where we come from, and I'm not saying where we're, well, you can go back to the planet where you come from if that's the energy that you've experienced, or you can go straight back to the womb of consciousness, which I call the womb, or in some ways it's also where you would face the entirety of the force of energy that is like the Great Spirit. And as I said, Great Spirit is great spirits connecting together. We are Great Spirit in plural. And I'm going to keep on saying this because this is exactly what it is. We are Great Spirit. And once we can actually connect with that um, authenticity, then we know how to go through things. But the only way to do it is to connect through the heart. So that not everybody just thinks it's a pushover to do that. It was not very easy to begin with, in any case, but if you can care and love for yourself, it's a good thing. Have a beautiful one. Much love to you all, and we're in this together. Don't feel alone. Even if you feel you are, don't feel alone. We are all connecting in some way with each other again. It is happening right now as we speak. So there's no particular date set ahead of time. As I've said, the event is all an internal thing. And we are in it. We are the event. We are in it. And we are changing things the way that we are experiencing it. But we are clearing up a lot of things that do not belong here anymore. Just remember that. All of you. Take care. Bye.